Welcome to the Health Conscious Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Gail Myers, and today my special guest is my friend, Celeste Mergens. Celeste is the founder of Days for Girls, a global award-winning organization that has reached more than 2.8 million women and girls in 145 countries. She has been featured in Oprah's O Magazine and Forbes, and has been named Conscious Company Global Impact Entrepreneur Top 10 Women and Women's Economic Forum's Woman of the Decade. Celeste is an author, sought-after speaker, consultant, and thought leader, specializing in sustainability, equity, and resilience. Her highly anticipated new book, The Power of Days, a story of resilience, dignity, and the fight for women's equity, comes out through Ben Bella Books this October, sharing proof that we can all make a difference. Welcome, Celeste.
Thank you. So good to be with you.
Oh, it is so wonderful to have you. You are such an inspirational leader and person who's obviously been mission-driven and highly accomplished. Tell us about your healing journey that has brought you to this amazing accomplishment and helping so many across the globe.
It's been incredible. So I'd say for me, it started very early. For me, understanding that we are not our circumstances, understanding that we are not the things we go through, but the strength that comes from the journey. And my family, when I was young, had a lot of challenges. We were often without a home, sometimes hungry, even thirsty. If you can imagine, in my generations in the United States, that was the reality for me. My father moved from place to place, always looking for a greener pasture, sure that someplace else would be better. So we moved 32 times before I was 13. And my mother struggled with mental illness. And as a result, things were very challenging for us, having parents that were struggling so much. And I remember being about 5 years old. We were in a state park along the way, and I was barefoot walking along a path, and this dog came into view and had it was white with a little rhinestone collar that went up a matching leash to this woman's hand. And she had in her hand a half-eaten apple. And I was, frankly, hungry. Been a while since I'd had a meal, and certainly a while since I'd had fresh fruit. So I'm watching as she throws the apple into what turned out to be a nearby dumpster. And I'm watching and thinking, how could I get in there and get back out? I just decided I probably couldn't get back out when I got that feeling, in the back of your neck that someone's staring at you. And she was doing that up and down look. And she said, "Where are your shoes, girl?" And it was one of those moments that you remember so clearly because it felt very traumatizing in the moment. It felt like it was as if a mirror turned and I could see what she saw when she looked at me, that she saw me as dirty and unkempt and small and unworthy. And I felt really judged. And in that moment, a simple assurance flooded through me. And I just wanted to tell her, I am not from here. I am not this place. I'm not what you're seeing. But she'd already turned and walked away. And I had this awareness in that moment. Not at all. I thought actually of her as Cruella de Vil, that movie. For years, I replayed this scene and how awful that woman was. Years later, just in recent years, I recognized that moment as a blessing because I actually got the gift at such a young age of being asked, are you the homeless girl? Are you the hungry girl? Are you the girl with no shoes? Or are you something more? And I got the gift of having an answer. And that moment echoed through my experiences, my witness of the truth that we are not our circumstances. And over time, learned that nor is anyone else. We're not our fame, our fortune, our jobs, our position, none of it. We're so much more than any of it, for better or worse. And that's been a major piece of my journey, is recognizing and allowing people to not be labeled, but to choose. And that certainly has affected the work of Days for Girls.
That's so beautiful. Right there with you, having gone through a near-death experience and realizing that all the accomplishments, all the degrees, everything in my life didn't really matter. But what really mattered was love and the people in it, because we are so much more. So then how did you come to create Days for Girls as a nonprofit that is now globally, it's growing and it's phenomenal. So tell us about it.
Well, first of all, I never set out to be a world expert in sex and menstruation. That's not the plan. And I actually was getting the gift of working on a sustainable solution with a Friends Foundation in Kenya, in a very rural area that had very little water. And we would help with things like agriculture and wells and sustainable solutions for medicine and education. And I had the gift of doing that. And of course, being a woman who keenly understands and cares about communities being able to rise from the circumstance of poverty, I was delighted. I was introduced to an orphanage as we searched a beautiful health program in the slums of Kibera, and I was asked to go to an orphanage. And at first I resisted that, fearing it would break my heart, but I also believe in saying yes. So when I arrived, I learned, I fell in love with the kids, wanted to give them solutions that would work to help them be more self-sustaining. Fast forward, there's post-election violence in Kenya, and this orphanage went from 420 kids to an estimated 1,400 children. Now I got the call that they were completely out of food, and they had been for 2 days. Now, you know, and I understand what that feels like, how you can't even concentrate. It robs you of your ability to even focus. And I wanted nothing more than to help the kids. So in seeking the answer to how to help them, really pleading for, tell me anything and I'll do it, I didn't get any answer until I woke up at 2:30 in the morning with it going through my head, have you asked what the girls are doing for feminine hygiene? I learned that they were sitting on pieces of cardboard for days. And unless someone brought them food or water, they just simply sat and waited, no access to their classroom. I also knew we were able to raise money for food, water, and pads, and single-use pads. But I knew if I was able to send money the next month for pads and they needed food, they would use that money for food, and you would want them to. That's the right decision all over the world. If someone has to choose between food and pads, food wins, shelter wins. Fuel in the tank so you can go to the next job interview wins. So we needed to make something that would last month after month. We made the first Days for Girls pad solution, and we brought education. I got to address what is a period, and your amazing body works like this, and you have the right to stand up for your health and future wellness. You don't need to be exploited. You don't need to be, you are amazing. You are a future leader and you matter. So we have this beautiful conversation. They're hugging their Days for Girls kids. They're dancing with them. The noise of their cheers echoing off the tin roofs. And then as they walk out, the first set of girls with great big smiles said, thank you so much. Because before you came, we had to let them use us if we wanted to leave the room and go to class. And I was hoping that didn't mean what I feared it meant. But there were another 250 girls that we had to teach, and I asked them, please wait so I can hear you and hear what you're trying to say. Afterwards, they explained that they were being sexually exploited in exchange for a single disposable pad. And that was the moment Days for Girls was born.
That's amazing and definitely heart-wrenching, and yet so inspirational that the moment came and how you've been guided through your life to wake up at 2:30 in the morning. It's like, what do I do? And then, well, you have to ask this other question first that's going to guide you to that moment in that moment. And so what did you do at that point?
Well, what's wonderful is I know that we're not alone. I know that we're way stronger when we invite people to join us. So I told everybody, and a lot of people didn't believe it. Maybe it's just in that orphanage, right? And I drew up the pattern. And by the way, the first pattern was awful. And I can say that I drew it, but I knew to listen. I knew to ask. I knew that just like we're not our circumstances, we all each have our own wisdom. And it is best to ask how things are working, how things are going, what we can learn from it. People rallied together like you would not believe, Gail. Hundreds of people helping make these. We had only 3 weeks to complete these kits at this point. And we made 500 Days for Girls kits in 3 weeks from ground zero to go, which is phenomenal. And we got there with these 8 enormous duffels. And then from there, when I returned with the news of what had happened, people were speechless. People thought it can't be elsewhere. And I just kept inviting them, which is so key to everything. Invite people. Don't tell them what to do. Don't lecture. Just, I invite you to ask. If you know someone in another area, ask them. And they would come back with, oh my goodness, we need this in India too. Oh my goodness, we need this in Guatemala. Oh, we need it in the Philippines. And we would share the patterns and created Days for Girls chapters, inviting people to be part of the process of building all the shared knowledge that we would be user driven. The pattern of the Days for Girls kits have been through 30 iterations and hold 2 patents for the genius of those we serve and serve with. It's incredible, this design. Washes with little water, dries quickly, overcomes cultural taboos, is soft. They're lasting, we say 2 to 4 years, but we actually have people reporting 5, 6, and even 8 years. So it's, amazing. But what's more important is or just as important is the education that goes with it. And that too has been through 70 plus iterations as we listen to what matters, what's relevant, and make it interactive and joyfully an invitation to shatter the shame around menstruation all over this planet. And in this way, it's not the power of me, it's the power of we that you see in Days for Girls. And thank goodness that's a global yes.
Just a miracle, truly. I want to go back a little bit that as a CEO, like you had experience in the nonprofit world. Mm-hmm. And then when you started Days for Girls, you were the CEO at the time, you were the founder. How did you gather your group that became now this global entity?
That's about inviting people, right? And it's also about, from the beginning, we gave people trust. So a lot of people would say, you can't give people your pattern. You can't trust people with that. What if they do a bad job? You can't give them your logo. What if they represent you poorly? And we made them part of the process. We made it about them and us and we let them know we were listening. And all along the journey, we made it about the girls, not about any of us. All along and it wasn't poor girls, it was brilliant girls. Let's give them their days back. We also, I knew from the very beginning, this couldn't be in any way divisive. It needed to be inclusive of countries, of religions, of not religions, everything bringing us together, nothing that divided us, that this had to be about giving them their days back. So that invitation became contagious. As the story shared, people were doing the impossible, talking about to complete strangers in fabric stores. It's made from fabric, this kit, about periods. Who does that? They did. They talked to their leaders in government. They talked to their neighbors, their friends. They were doing the impossible. And what's important, I think, was I had times when people invited me to speak, hearing she's a real, you should have her come speak. And then they heard what it was and they'd say, oh, I'm sorry, we have to cancel you. We can't talk about periods in our club. And even women's groups, like, we're sorry, but we can't take this on. And I recognize something really important. When we're building something, we don't have to worry about who will say no. We just are looking for our tribe that naturally resonates with this. In my opinion, Days for Girls and the mission of eradicating period poverty and having menstrual equity around the world is equivalent to the suffragettes. Yes. This is something we can change in our lifetime. We couldn't be there for suffragettes, but we got this one in our generation. And not everyone has to march with us. In fact, thank goodness, some of us care about music, some of us care about pets, some of us care about, thank goodness, because we can't do it all. But if we stand to our personal passion and we fearlessly say, are you in our tribe? And then if they say no, go, oh, I'm so glad you're doing the things that are calling to you. Next, if we do that, instead of fixating on what people will think, we instead say, I'm gathering our movers and shakers. I'm looking for the people who want to see this change in the world. Next, then we're creating with a massive movement. I think the other thing, Gail, was that I knew we were sitting in a room in 2012, and a consultant friend of mine was with the board of Days for Girls. And we were sitting there and she said, okay, what is your goal? And I said, every girl everywhere. It later became every girl everywhere, period. And she said, no, we want a measurable, achievable goal. And I told her, it is measurable and it is achievable. It's about putting the right resources and programming with people one at a time, one community at a time, let them own it next. And she looked at me and kind of blinked and said, let me redefine measurable and achievable. And I get what she's saying. And honestly, unless it's a goal that takes your breath away, you are not going to be the engine that jumps in the sail that picks you up and flies. It has to be something that sets your heart on fire, that you go, I want that in the world. And that's when other people are excited to join you, excited to be part of the change. It becomes not one kid at a time, but one person at a time. It becomes the faces of the movement that can happen with your own two hands, your heart, and invitations. I think it's important that you're following the thing that calls to you, and that you're recognizing that it needs to be as big and audacious enough so you are absolutely overjoyed to be part of it.
So beautiful. The one thing, regardless of country, race, financial situation, economic situation, regardless of religion or family origin, one thing that women have in common is menstrual cycles.
Mm-hmm.
It's our biology and it's what we're born with and we live with. And to be able to change that, to bring that healing to women all over the world, that they know that what they see and experience every month for 40 years, that is going to be a journey that they can love, enjoy in the way that their body is designed, so that they can live their life with their purpose. And I can't think of a more beautiful journey and mission for women right now on the planet. I mean, we also have the menopausal piece, and that's another group that is working on that one. But you're working on the cycles of life. And so they get to have their cycle with their body and their cycles of their life.
Exactly. And Gail, it really connects us all, as you know. Even test tube babies are part of a cycle, right?
Yes.
So what are we afraid of? I know there's blood involved, and I know anything with blood is illness or injury. And But literally, did you know that the word taboo originally meant menstruation in the islands? I mean, that literally, and it's one of the world's greatest taboos, universal, all over our planet. We've reached 145 countries on 6 continents. And I find that just fascinating. Even where we are, people would rather talk about diarrhea than menstruation, and they don't really want to talk about diarrhea. So the truth is,
there is that.
It's a basic part of our biology, as you're saying.
Yes.
And so talking about it and normalizing this is incredibly important.
Absolutely. The taboo has been historic. It's like you said, like voting rights for women. It was not spoken about. And now it's time. And now with global communication, it's going to be that much easier to spread the message and to reach and to free women and girls to be able to know that it's okay, because it's part of who we are. It's part of the natural world of living and reproducing or not. I'm so excited because we have the 100th monkey, right? The 100th monkey theory, or the, you know, when enough people, enough women can speak about it, it's changing the dynamic. It's changing the culture of being female.
It absolutely is. And this is one of the reasons I'm so excited about the book that's coming out, because in my opinion, when we hit New York Times and national bestseller, that's a 100th monkey moment. That's a tipping point moment where we all go, oh, why don't we change this?
That's so exciting. And let's back up just a moment. When did you know you had to write a book?
Oh my, I'm not even sure the exact moment of that. I would say that as I was on the journeys and experiencing these amazing communities and these phenomenal women leaders who sacrifice so much to make this happen in their communities, and how people were overcoming being allocated to sheds as untouchable, having to stay there for 3 to 7 days, or when they just had a baby, having to be there 10 to 20 days with a newborn in a shed in the inclement weather of Nepal because you're considered untouchable, and watching them rise up and be the community message that we can change this. I knew their stories needed to be told. I actually struggled to know, should this be just about them, my first instinct? And people said, no, as a founder, you need to share what unique things made you build this unique organization. So this was a process to kind of figure out how this needed to be woven and told, and to figure out which of the thousands of stories would represent the whole. And it's been incredible to get to record and share the journey. And I think chief among the messages is that we see each other as others. And right now, with all the trauma that is being experienced around our world, I think the temptation to create enormous gaps and gulfs of otherness is rampant, and that the part of our brain that sorts for safety is on massive overload. And so there's such temptation to relegate each other to our corners and not listen to each other, not hear each other, and not see the strength in our differences. And this book has incredible proof from all over the world of how much we have in common because of our differences.
Yes. And it's a call to action.
It is.
For each one of us.
100%. And not just about menstrual equity. It's really a metaphor, in addition to a truth, that we can make a difference by being who we are authentically, and that we really can come together over enormous divides and create tremendous impact with the smallest of things. And it's really just knowing, stand up where you're called. It's really phenomenal to see and witness and record what happens when you do.
And you are living proof. and teaching and leading. And your book comes out in October.
Yes, it's the lead book for Bimbella Books, which is really exciting. It means that they expect it to be a very big book.
You have a lot of support behind you at Bimbella Books. They're so excited to see this out in the world, in the publishing world, to put a book out there that is a beautiful book to begin with, but then that has such a reach and impact and global change agent in that book that's going to inspire hearts, inspire women and men to really step up to an awareness and a change in the world that is actually going to bring such peace for all of us. When you were writing the book, did you look at the history of menstruation? And like, I think back about the red tent and, you know, the historic difference when women would have their menstrual cycles. They would menstruate together, and that happens biologically. They all start to menstruate and they go into the red tent. And the women who were premenstrual and menopausal women would take care of all the chores for the tribe, and the women would go to get together and tell stories and massage each other's feet and eat nice things and just take care of each other. And I read this and I thought, wow, where did we lose it? And look at PMS in this country. And as a professional, you know, when I was having cycles, I had to keep working. So do pilots, so do military, so does anybody in their profession. You keep working. And so it's almost against your natural cycle to go inward in that creative time of menstruation and that inspirational time, because it is a sacred time also. So what happened to us?
First, there are some cultures that do celebrate. Some First Nations cultures see you as so powerful that being with others is that you need to be creative and quiet. And there are some Jewish communities that still celebrate that be together in the ways that you're talking about. And my experience around the globe and in research and in all that I've been gifted to be able to be part of in the last 14 years has shown me that when I read that book, I thought that's amazing, that the reality is there are no billowing curtains with lotion standing by. The reality is that women are asked to do hard things all over the world. And women are actually seen as, in some cases, less than the dogs in the yard. I was once told in Nepal, when I was asking about how they felt about menstruation, how it was affecting them, how the chapati practice of being isolated was affecting, and what one of them explained that the status of beings for women there at the time was as follows: men, oxen; boys, goats; women, poultry; girls. When you are seen as less than the poultry in the yard in value to your community, that's a hardship to overcome. And truly, in many parts of the world, women are still seen as the ones that should not speak, the ones that should do the work, the ones that are left behind. And in my experience, not to simplify, the lack of understanding about menstruation kind of underscores and is a pivoting point for when they're seen as less than. That's why it's so important to talk about it. And they're actually being forced to use rags and cow dung broken into pieces and leaves and trash and mattress stuffing, anything to try to be part of the day-to-day activities. They're just supposed to manage it or be isolated and sit on a pile of dust or feathers and just be there without being able to care for themselves. And it is not, for the most part, communal, but a singular struggle where you are just to manage, and unfortunately often with shame. So I had hoped that would be the case, even in the rainforest where I thought maybe they'd have soft leaves that they use. And indeed, they're left vulnerable. I'm so grateful that something so basic is so easily addressed with such little intervention, and that just knowledge and education and letting them know they're the leaders now for their community and can lead in the ways that they see is such a powerful change maker. Because I wish it was all billowy curtains and foot rubs, but the reality is it's far, far from that.
And so how have these girls, these women changed as a result of Days for Girls and the packages that they receive?
Oh, it's amazing. They're able to go back to school. I have to tell you, there is a girl and they stand up to trafficking. They stand up to exploitation. It's amazing. There's a girl in India, Neha, and she is a beautiful young girl. She had received her kit, Days for Girls kit, 2 years earlier. We were in a meeting with an incredibly revered leader, large in stature, and in business and in caste. Now, this is a community where just the year prior, there had been girls at a college who refused to write down when their period was and sit in the back of the space. All of them refused to write it down. So they actually, this is hard to hear, they strip searched college-age girls to see who was on their period. They violated their privacy to that level. They were so afraid of people not reporting when their period was. So this is an area where there's such stigma about periods. And in this community, this man was saying, I don't think people use these kits. I think it's so low caste to touch menses and to manage this. They're using it once, if at all, and throwing them away, burying them. So I don't think this is going to work. And this remarkable 16-year-old tapped his arm and said, excuse me, took 2 excuse me's before he even acknowledged her. And she's standing there in her striped school uniform and says, I use these kits and I have not had to miss school for the last 2 years. He looked at her like, yeah, right. And this amazing girl said, I will bring my kit tomorrow and show you. She brought her kit. She showed everyone that the visible usage and how much time there was and wear left in it with a huge smile. And this leader in the community was presenting to the governor the new Days for Girls kit just days later, saying this is a remarkable solution.
Oh.
And this is what we're doing, and led the initiative to say this is important. And in this room where everyone was being revered, I saw the hero in the room was a little girl with pigtails in the front row of the students, not on the stage. And this is what we see all over the world again and again. They stand up, they become the leaders, they have more confidence, and they're able to finish their education. They're able to realize that they're not something to be ashamed of, that their basic biology isn't betraying them. Instead, menstruation is a beautiful, natural part of being a healthy woman. And that brings a core confidence that we see again and again that is pretty unshakable.
Absolutely. And also the knowledge that they're globally supported.
Mm-hmm.
This has come to them when they need it most. And now they're empowered as a result of it.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. Oh my goodness. So Celeste, what an honor it is to speak with you. Before we go, I'd like you to talk about Mind the Gap.
I'm so excited about this. And it's really what we do with Days for Girls. We pay attention, we listen, we invite people to come together across big divides and to consider what we have in common. And in my experience, what I've recognized is that there is actually a moment between when something happens to us and when we define what it means and we prepare to respond. Now, this moment is a heartbeat, less than a heartbeat. And our amazing brain is able to quickly make decisions without us having to concentrate every time. And when it's traumatizing, it's our amygdala that's responding with what I call our lizard brain, ready to flitter under a rock, that responds. And it always responds with negative bias, always, because that's its job, to keep us safe. And we don't recognize that. So there's two things happening when something happens. One, like menstruation, you go, oh, it's blood. This is bad, right? So we can't blame cultural decision to go bad. How do we get rid of that, right? It's a natural thing. And with our day-to-day lives, if we have an experience that's traumatizing, we store that away. And if it's especially traumatizing, it's not just a conscious thing. It's also an energy thing. It literally sears into even our DNA. So we're making sure we got this, right? So let's say you're 3 years old. You're in a crowd. Your family disappears. And you're like, these strangers are there, and you're sure you are lost forever. In those moments, you're like, and your family can show up 20 seconds later, and you go, yay. But part of you now has that you're walking around with, I'm not okay. I could be abandoned at any moment. And you don't get to bring those two things together. What I know is that we actually can go consciously back to moments like that and choose to reframe them with the wisdom of right now. So for instance, in that case, for me, I actually put my hands together and open it up as if I'm opening the moment like Tai Chi. And you know how those moments actually, you can see them, you can almost smell them, the colors, they're really vibrantly. So
all of our senses.
Exactly. It's as if you're watching the movie anew every time you re-experience, right? You think about it. And you see all the things you can see. And importantly, you feel the feelings. Allow yourself to feel the feelings. Now, we don't want to feel the feelings. That's the whole point. Our lizard brain is ready to protect us from feeling the feelings.
Right, because it's fear and danger and
you're like, I don't know.
Survival. Yeah.
Exactly, Gail. So Dr. Gail, you are like programmed. We are programmed to avoid that feeling. So if you can allow yourself to go back and just feel those feelings and then bring your wisdom from right now back to, okay, what do I know about this? First, start with gratitude if you can. I'm so grateful they showed up, and hold on, little 3-year-old, actually, wait, watch this. First of all, I'm so proud of you. You were so brave. I noticed how you're looking around and trying to figure out a solution, how you're really watching. I mean, look at that observance going on with you. and then, oh, I'm so glad they came back. They came back. They always come back. I've been so blessed with a family that cares for me so greatly. And from this wisdom and point of view, I can know that absolutely I felt completely abandoned. And I'm grateful I got to experience understanding of people who do get abandoned. I got the empathy for that. So I'm owning the empathy. I'm owning the love. I'm owning the joy. I'm owning my talents of resilience to stand there and observe instead of going into complete panic. And I'm owning that experience changed the way I see the world. And I'm taking back that energy because I don't have to have that fear. Actually, it never belonged to me. It was just that moment. I'm taking it back and close the moment. It is powerful.
Absolutely healing. It's transformative. And it's really accessing our inner wisdom that's full and sees a greater picture. And the amygdala's there, like you said, the lizard brain to protect us. But it doesn't need to run the show. And that's what happens in those moments, so that when we can access the greater inner wisdom of who we truly are, the wholeness of spirit, we really can see that that's a memory, a moment, and it's not who I am right here, right now. And it's so empowering. You have that ability to share that. And what's so beautiful as I listen to you is that Days for Girls is doing that also in a way that's actually tangible.
Yes.
So every time, every month, when they have their kit and they have that empowerment, then they're reframing those moments.
Absolutely.
One girl at a time, 1 month at a time. So, oh my goodness, that's amazing. So, Celeste, what 3 things would you like to share with the audience as we finish?
Thank you for asking. I would say one of the important things I would love to share is that we can't care what people think of us. What people think of us from the book, The Four Agreements, is none of our business. And that is literal, because honestly, we often assume the wrong thing. We're often assuming from a place of, okay, now I did it. They're not even talking to me. I did something wrong, when in actuality, they didn't even see you waving, or we often assume the worst, like we've been talking about. And in truth, if we can get to that place of just compassion for others, just, I'm curious what that was about. Instead of going to deeply wounded lizard place, we can choose to be curious. We can choose to go, gee, I don't know what that was about, but I do know that in the past, I've loved being their friend. I've trusted them and loved them. It'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Keeps us in a place of building and creating instead of a place of woundedness. And even if they were trying to insult you or angry at you, it also helps you know how to communicate better and not be stuck in a place of wrestling with it. You deserve all of your energy and all of your joy, and caring what people think of us takes us away from that place and frankly robs you of true connection. And I think the second would be trust. You know what? I didn't plan to be a menstrual expert. And I don't plan my next thing. I didn't. If you trust, if you say yes, if you listen and show up and keep working and just be curious and go, wonder what this is about, I promise you'll be guided and able to live to your highest purpose. That is worth the dance. That is worth the risk. And you don't have to invest your whole soul in a certain outcome, because there may be something greater than you ever thought possible. Before Days for Girls happened, I was running a world-class writers conference I had founded. And when it felt like it was time to move on, I was like, no, I actually love this so much. Why would I want to give this up? And if it hadn't turned out the way it did, I would not have been in place for Days for Girls to happen. And recently, I knew it was time to transition out of my role of CEO and trust in a beautiful, incredibly gifted human being and dear friend to be the CEO of Days for Girls and continue with my global advocacy. And I trust that there are other things for me to stand in additionally to Days for Girls. I trust that. And we can trust that your life is giving you gifts you can't even imagine with every single experience. We can mind the gap. We can expect the best. We can be curious. We can navigate this beautiful, terrifying, messy, remarkable life that we all share on this beautiful planet.
Thank you, Celeste. That is one for the books. It's been such a pleasure. And I know that many will benefit, and not just benefit, but grow and be inspired. How can they reach you? And of course, your book is pre-sale on Amazon.
It is.
Yes.
So it's called The Power of Days, as you said. It would be incredible for everyone to buy it, tell friends, okay, because we have an impossible mission, another one. We're going to make a book about periods become a New York Times bestseller.
Yes.
Now, that is, by every definition, unlikely, but we can do it.
We can.
Will change lives. So tell everyone. We need to pre-sell 40 to 50,000 books to do that before October 3rd. And I don't know about you, but I'm willing to double dog dare bet that this will become a New York Times bestseller because it will change so many lives. So that you can follow me on social media. Days for Girls is, you've got to check out the website and learn more about that. There are amazing videos on that. You can volunteer with Days for Girls, support Days for Girls. And I would absolutely love to join people on social media or join your group in speaking, or I'm at your service. So delighted to connect with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today.
My
And I
pleasure.
look forward to speaking with you again.
Until next time.
Yes. Bye for now.